All right. Well, welcome everybody to the first, let's say, real episode of the American Man podcast. I'm Isaiah Ritchie, and today is Inauguration Day. It's January 20th, 2025, and President Trump was just inaugurated and sworn in for his second term. And so I'll just be talking a little bit about that and what we think will be coming up in the next 4 years. It does seem like the pendulum just keeps swinging further and further, and American politics just seems like it is getting more dramatic and more drastic in each direction. Um, it's hard to say if the practical effect, when everything comes to fruition, but it does seem like the rhetoric has just increased on each side. Like I said, the pendulum just swings from one side to another, and it just keeps going further and further. And a pendulum only has energy if you're pushing it when it's going each direction. And it just seems that the pushback is getting more and more just stronger, but with more animus, just more intensity. And I don't think that reflects the majority of the country. I really don't. I think people, for the most part, want to get along and want to be friends, want to find common ground. But there's just too much at stake, I think, for the American political system, for the politicians themselves, for special interests, to sort of create that that adversity between the parties and between, you and me, between just everyday people. So, it's it's a fun time. It's an interesting time. I say that the inauguration, that time between the election and coming up to the inauguration, it's sort of like being a Bears fan on draft day. Um, you get really excited. You think you've got your guy, and you think you've got your coach figured out finally, and you're drafting these players, and you think this is going to be the year. This is going to be the time. And then the regular season comes around, and we've seen that story before. Obviously, I'm optimistic. I think that Trump has put together a group of largely outsiders. Now, there's been a lot of criticism that he's bringing in millionaires and billionaires and the elite and things like that, but they've been political outsiders, or at least a lot of them have, for a lot of their lives, and a lot of them, come from really moderate backgrounds. If you look at RFK Jr., Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, a lot of these people were Democrats up until just a couple of years ago. So I think he's really brought in a moderate group. It's just that the left has ran so far to the left that they don't recognize their own anymore. And I hope that they bring some common sense solutions to some of the issues facing America today. I've heard so much criticism that these people are not qualified, that some of these cabinet members aren't qualified. They've never done this, and they've never done that. But I've seen what the qualified people have been doing for the last 4 years. I've seen what the qualified people have been doing in my whole life, right? And I don't think the country is necessarily better off today because of the qualified people. So I'm not as concerned, because whatever we were doing wasn't working. Whatever we were doing, it led to the issues that we have today. We have a society that is more confused, has more anxiety, more depression, more health concerns than ever before. And so whatever we were doing, we're losing the education battle. We're losing the war on drugs, quote unquote. So I think whatever we were doing, it wasn't working. So if people want to try something new, even if it fails, I can't see a situation where it's going to be worse off than we have been. But again, so it's kind of like that draft day, or that preseason where these guys, they're looking really good in practice. Oh yeah, that quarterback, he's developing such a rapport with this receiver. He made such an incredible catch today at practice. but they're playing in shorts and helmets, right? They're not wearing pads, they're not getting tackled. The quarterback still has the red jersey on for no contact. So yeah, we'll see, right? We'll see what happens. You know, Obviously Trump can only do so much in terms of issuing executive orders or ruling through fiat, or like he said, be a dictator on day one and then step back. This is going to require change in us. This is going to require change in every American who wants to see a better future for their kids, who wants to live in a better future in a year. This is going to come down to you and me being a reflection of what we want to see in this country, being a better neighbor, reaching out to those people who need help, those people who are down on their luck. Instead of just saying, oh, go, get a job or, whatever, help them. Look for a job for them. Maybe there's a place that that's hiring, right? Offer to take them to an interview. Help people get on their feet. And one of the biggest, I would say, conservative criticisms of the government is handouts, and just getting people to live on welfare and things like that. And that sword cuts both ways, right? If we criticize that, we have to be willing to step up. The church has to be willing to step up. People who are doing well need to be willing to step up. So, we've taken the first step, but we have to do more. And that change is going to come in the local communities. My whole life, I've gotten more and more interested in politics and governance and things like that. But, there's only been a handful of laws or presidencies that have had any sort of real direct impact on my life. And so what has impact? It's the local government. It's the state government. It's the neighborhood. It's the people you surround yourself with. It's the good that you do. That's what makes a difference. How you raise your family, how you interact with your friends, whether you're a positive influence on them or a negative influence on them. That's the real change. And I hope over the next 4 years, people feel more and more empowered and enabled to do those good things and to be supportive of each other. Because hopefully, we don't feel like we have the government breathing down our necks and telling us what we have to do. So, that's probably a topic for a different day, but, it's been an interesting day with the inauguration. And, I think the biggest story of the day is probably not the inauguration itself, but it is the continuance of Joe Biden in issuing just a slew of preemptive pardons. And I have not taken the time to study past practices in terms of pardons. But, I know that a preemptive pardon, that's assuming that someone has done something wrong. And, it sort of begs the question, obviously there's two sides to the story. So he's saying, he needs to do this now because he's worried that, if he doesn't, that Trump will come after them, and the Trump Department of Justice will pursue them for political reasons and, that type of thing. And so that's where they're coming from. Obviously this, brings the question, if they didn't do anything wrong, why would they need a pardon? And if they accept the pardon, is that an admission of guilt? As the Department of Justice attorneys have argued in the past, that accepting a pardon admits guilt, and also the broadness of these pardons. And I think, we're seeing a case where Biden has really been basically realized that the Democratic Party is not going to stand up for him anymore. They kind of left him in the dust. And so he's just looking out for himself on his way out. I don't think most Democrats wanted him to do this because now the precedent has been set. Now Trump would be a fool not to pardon his family and his supporters on his last day. Every president from here on out should just go ahead and issue blanket pardons to anyone who served in his administration or any ally, inside his administration or outside. It has set a precedent that I think we'll look back on and say, well, now it's just business as usual. For the outgoing president on his last day, he's just going to pardon everyone. And why not? Right? So I'm worried that we are just setting up. There was so much concern this past year when the Supreme Court ruled that a sitting president can't be charged criminally for an official action. And then there was also another standard for, actions taken as president. It doesn't quite count as an official action, et cetera, et cetera. This is more dangerous, I think, than that ruling, because at least the Supreme Court ruling was limited to official actions. Now we could argue what constitutes an official action by the president, but this is a blanket pardon, and there's no way to undo this. Now they could be subject to state laws, but let's keep in mind that a lot of these times people are prosecuted for federal crimes, and that's where they end up. So I think it's something to watch as things go on, and obviously Trump responded. He went and pardoned 1,500 January 6th people who had been arrested or convicted and tried and convicted and were serving sentences or had been charged. So Trump turned around and said, okay, if you're going to pardon all these people, I'm going to pardon all these people. And again, I think Democrats are probably kind of upset that Joe Biden did this on his way out, because it gives them less ammunition to say, well, Trump shouldn't be doing this. So we'll see where it goes. It was certainly an eventful inauguration day. We'll see what happens. We hope that this isn't just the preseason hype. Hopefully things can get better. Hopefully things do get better for you and for me. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and we'll see you next time.